welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. Indian troops have martyred 3 more civilians in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Pulwama district. The youths were targeted during a so-called cordon and search operation in Kakpura area of the district. The occupying Indian forces killed 11 Kashmiris in the last month of March. At least 48 people have died and 66 others are injured when a train derailed in a tunnel in eastern Taiwan. The Transport Ministry said the train derailed after hitting a truck in the island's worst rail disaster in 4 decades. The train was en route to the southeastern city of Taitung, carrying mostly tourists. In Myanmar, pro-democracy activists have vowed to continue protests despite the internet shutdown and bloody crackdown. Earlier, UN Security Council strongly condemned the deaths of hundreds of civilians. According to a local advocacy group, nearly 550 people have been killed in the uprising so far. India has yet again reported this year's highest 469 deaths from COVID-19 and over 81,000 infections overnight. Pakistan has registered over 5,000 cases for the first time in over 9 months, while 83 people died overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed 2.8 million lives and infected over 129 million people so far. And in cricket, South Africa are 111 for 4 against Pakistan in the first one-day international at Centurion. Pakistan's fast bowler Shaheen Shah Afridi has taken 2 wickets. Earlier, the visitors won the toss and chose to field first. The Green Shirts are in South Africa to play 3 ODI match series and 4 T20 internationals. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Indian troops have martyred 3 civilian youths in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Pulwama district. The youths were targeted during a so-called cordon and search operation in the Kakpura area of the district. The violent cordon and search operation was still going on till the last reports came in. The occupying Indian forces have killed 11 Kashmiris and arrested over 100 over the past 30 days. In March, 51 youths were critically injured due to the use of brute force by the Indian troops. Meanwhile, former Chief Minister Kashmir Mehbooba Mufti flayed Indian opposition for staying silent over scraping of Kashmir's special status. In a statement, Mufti said she has written a letter to West Bengal's Mamta Banjiri asking her to raise her voice. At least 48 people have died and over 60 are injured when a train derailed in a tunnel in eastern Taiwan. The Transport Ministry said the train derailed after hitting a truck in the island's worst rail disaster in 4 decades. The ministry said the train was en route to the southeastern city of Taitung, carrying mostly tourists. The railway authority said over 66 people have been taken to the hospital. Meanwhile, the rescuers are searching for 2 passengers who are still trapped inside the train. The incident occurred when people were heading home to start a traditional holiday of Tomb Sweeping Day. In Afghanistan, at least 5 civilians have been killed in a roadside blast in the city of Lashkargah in Helmand province. Local officials say the incident happened in the Chahar Gul area along the Helmand-Kandahar highway. Earlier, 7 women were injured after a bomb blast hit a civilian vehicle in Khushke-Khona district in Herat province. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the incidents. Russia says the U.S. is prolonging its withdrawal of the forces from Afghanistan over concerns of the future of Kurd authorities in Kabul. In a press briefing, the Foreign Ministry spokesperson said despite military technical assistance from NATO for 20 years, Kabul is still unable to address its security concerns. The U.S. is scheduled to withdraw all of its forces by May 1st under a deal signed between former President Donald Trump and the Taliban. However, President Joe Biden is re-engaging on the pact, saying Washington finds it difficult to meet the deadline. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has criticized Russia for building up troops on its country's border. In a statement, Zelensky said muscle flexing in the form of military exercises and possible provocations are traditional Russian games. He said Moscow seeks to create a threatening atmosphere as Kiev hopes to resume a ceasefire brokered last year. But the Kremlin said the buildup poses no threat and Russia is taking measures to ensure the security of its own borders. Foreign Minister of Russia Sergei Lavrov said Ukraine's militaries need to understand the danger of a hot conflict in Donbas. Lavrov also threatened the total destruction of Ukraine if such a conflict would ensue. Tensions in eastern Ukraine have been high as Moscow and Kiev accuse each other of failing to implement a peace deal over Donbas. The EU says officials from Iran, China, Britain, Russia, and 2 other states will discuss a possible U.S. return to the 2015 nuclear deal today. Brussels says political director of the European External Action Service, Enrique Mora, will chair the Joint Commission. In a statement, the bloc said the participants will also hold talks on how to ensure the implementation of the agreement by all sides. The U.S. State Department has welcomed the initiative, terming it a positive step. President Joe Biden's administration has been seeking to engage Iran in talks about both sides resuming compliance with the deal. The 2 sides are locked in a standoff over who should move first to salvage the nuclear agreement. The coalition in Yemen says it has destroyed 2 missiles launched by Houthi rebels. It says the missiles were aimed at southern Khamis Mashhad city of Saudi Arabia. In a statement, the coalition said the rebels continue to target civilians and residential property in Saudi Arabia. It said coalition forces are taking operational measures to protect civilians with line in international humanitarian law. The coalition also said it destroyed a ballistic missile and launch pad in Yemen's eastern Marib province. Yesterday, Houthis claimed to have hit multiple targets in the Saudi capital, Riyadh. In Myanmar, pro-democracy activists have vowed to continue protests despite the internet shutdown and bloody crackdown. Earlier, the UN Security Council strongly condemned the deaths of hundreds of civilians. In a statement, the Security Council called on all parties in the country to stop the violence and resume dialogue. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch says Myanmar's military has forcibly disappeared hundreds of people since the first February coup. It said the military acts are grave violations of international law and are crimes against humanity. The organization has called on concerned governments to impose economic sanctions against military leaders. According to a local advocacy group, nearly 550 people have been killed in the uprising so far. In Bangladesh, at least 3 Rohingyas have been burnt to death after a fire broke at a refugee camp in Kutapalong camp of Cox's Bazar. Police say the fire has destroyed more than 20 shops in the makeshift market near the camp. Rescuers said firefighters took several hours to bring the blaze under control. The fire broke out when residents of the camp for Myanmar's Rohingya refugees were asleep. Last month, 15 refugees were killed and over 500 others injured in a massive blaze that burned around 10,000 shelters. In the Netherlands, Prime Minister Mark Rutte has narrowly survived a no-confidence vote over his conduct during talks to form a governing coalition. Parliament adopted a formal motion of disapproval which noted that he had not spoken the truth during the talks. Root said Parliament has given him a serious message and he will try his best to win back its confidence. The crisis arose after Root acknowledged having privately discussed what job should go to a prominent member of the Parliament who had been critical of his previous cabinet. Root had previously said he did not do so. British drug regulators say they have identified 30 cases of rare blood clotting after the use of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Globally, the virus has claimed 2.8 million lives and infected over 129 million people so far. More on the pandemic in this report.
The widening inequities in vaccinations, coupled with the new variants spearheading the latest wave, is ravaging the world. South America continues to be the hardest hit region. Chile has closed its borders and tightened an already strict lockdown as cases climb past 1 million despite one of the world's fastest vaccination rates. The Brazilian city of Sao Paulo has sped up efforts to empty old graves to make room for soaring deaths. The U.S., however, continues to herald the promising developments, as the U.S. inches closer to 100 million people getting at least one shot of COVID-19 vaccine. On the other hand, the WHO says the COVAX facility distributing vaccines to poorer countries is facing serious challenges to meet the demand.
The clock is still ticking on vaccine equity. We have 9 days left until we reach the 100th day of the year, and the target of starting vaccine rollout to health workers and those at risk in all countries remains in our grasp.
The World Health Organization has also criticized the rollout of vaccines in Europe as being unacceptably slow. Most European Union states have agreed to share part of their upcoming vaccine deliveries with the 5 EU countries they said need them most. Meanwhile, Belgian police clashed with a large crowd in Brussels Park after thousands of revelers gathered for an unauthorized event. Chancellor Angela Merkel has urged Germans to celebrate Easter quietly to stop the threatening third wave.
It should be a quiet Easter with only those closest to you and with very reduced contact. I urge you to refrain from all non-essential travel and that we hold to all the rules. It is no longer the very old who are fighting for their lives. Now it is also the middle-aged and younger people that need ventilation.
Turkey recorded over 40,000 single-day cases, the highest since the outbreak, as Ankara eased measures in early March. Over in Australia, the vaccine rollout in old homes has been a disaster, while authorities probe a blood clotting disorder case. A 44-year-old man was admitted to a Melbourne hospital with a possible clotting days after receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, more than 5,000 people tested positive for COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, highest since last June. The health ministry said over 5,200 cases contracted the virus, while 83 died overnight. The country's death tally has surpassed 14,600. The ministry said more than 678,000 people have been infected across the country, whereas more than 607,000 have recovered so far. At the moment, there are over 56,000 active cases in the country, while the country's positivity rate is hovering above 10%. Meanwhile, authorities in Pakistan have decided to vaccinate people above 65 years of age and above on the stop from Saturday. Saudi Arabia's King Salman has wished a speedy recovery to the President of Pakistan, Dr. Arif Alvi. In a diplomatic cable, King Salman sent sincere wishes for permanent good health and happiness to President Alvi. President Alvi recently tested positive for COVID-19. He has already taken the first shot of the coronavirus vaccine. France has welcomed Saudi Arabia's Middle East Green Initiative, recently announced by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to combat climate change. In a phone call with the Crown Prince, French President Emmanuel Macron promised all possible efforts to help achieve the goals. Saudi state media said both leaders asserted that the plan is one of the most ambitious global initiatives to combat climate change. It said the two leaders also discussed the impact of climate change on economic, social, and health sectors. Prince Salman is engaged in active green diplomacy lately to garner backing for his plan to plant billions of trees in the region. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Escaping from poverty and violence and hoping for a better future, tens of thousands of migrants have trekked to the U.S. border recently. However, the hardships of this expedition have made their lives miserable. Details in this report.
For years, thousands of illegal migrants have been seeking to cross into the U.S., mainly from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Ecuador through Mexico. Being racked with poverty, violence, and infiltrated by drug cartels, the residents of these places are left with no other choice but to leave. However, having been dependent on human smugglers and the various other physical and legal hindrances, make their journey towards a better life no less than hell. In a recent appalling incident, smugglers dropped two little girls from the top of a 14-foot wall into the middle of the desert on the U.S.-Mexico border.
It is just a reflection of a broken immigration system, a failed strategy, the results of which are not circumstantial. For years, migrants, families, children have been exposed and they are at risk. Smugglers without any scruples are hired, so we can't blame the families. There is no solution because the immigration situation, children and families have always been treated as a police matter.
U.S. President Joe Biden's administration condemned the actions of the smugglers. White House spokesperson Jen Psaki called the traffickers as morally reprehensible, while urging the migrants to not come to the U.S. However, such statements do not seem enough to stop the desperate people who have chosen a very difficult path to fulfill their American dream.
In Egypt, arrangements are being finalized for the Pharaoh's Golden Parade. In the event, 22 royal mummies will be transported to a new home from their current residing place. More in this report.
Egypt is preparing for a grand parade, one unlikely to be held anywhere else. The main participants of the event would not be the national leaders, acrobats, or current celebrities, but dead bodies. The travel route for the Pharaoh's Golden Parade has been secured and decorated with lights and banners. Then mummies will be shifted from the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir to their final resting place in the National Egyptian Museum of Civilization in Fustat.
They're going on their last journey to go from one museum to another museum that is perhaps slightly better equipped to deal with them. But it is a poignant moment to think of so many of Egypt's royalty going through the streets of this modern capital. And in fact, they're going back to an ancient capital of Fustat. So it will be, I think, a very moving event.
The mummies will be placed in a protected capsule and moved alongside their grave goods for 48 minutes across Cairo and by Tahrir Square. The parade is one of several efforts to attract tourism in Egypt after the industry received a painful blow amid the pandemic. The numbers of tourists dropped to 3.5 million last year from 13.1 million in 2019.
The message is very important. We are going to tell the people through the parade of the mummies that Egypt is safe. We need people to come back. COVID-19 will be nothing because the mummies will stop all of that, and Cairo still have mystery and magic, and the mummies are doing that.
The almost 3,000 years old mummies are of 18 kings and 4 queens, which belong to the New Kingdom. They were discovered in 2 caches in Luxor's Deir al-Bahari and Valley of the Kings, the earliest in 1871.
The Suez Canal Authority says Egypt will seek compensation worth around $1 billion for the blockade caused by the vessel Ever Given. Authorities chairman says the amount is an estimate of losses linked to transit fees, damages to the waterway, and salvage the efforts. In an interview, Salma Rabi said compensation is Egypt's right and the incident hurt the country's reputation. He did not specify whom the authority will seek the compensation from. Evergreen Marine Corporation says that it is not responsible for the delays of cargo. Its president, Eric Hasse, ruled out the possibility of the company paying compensation. The 400 meters long, 224,000-ton Panama flagged ship ran aground and blocked the navigation for almost a week. Most markets in the Asia-Pacific region are shut on the eve of Good Friday, while those operating today have gained. Investors continue to ride the wave of positive sentiment created at the start of the second quarter yesterday. Leading the gains, the Nikkei 225 in Japan has nearly added 1.5%. Seoul's Kospi edged up marginally. In mainland China, the Shanghai Composite was up close to 0.5%, while the Shenzhen Component gained just above 1%. Markets in Europe, Australia, Hong Kong, India, and Singapore are closed for Good Friday. And in cricket, South Africa are 137 for 4 against Pakistan in the first one-day international at Centurion. Earlier, the visitors won the toss and chose to field first. Pakistan's fast bowler Shaheen Shah Afridi has taken 2 wickets. The green shirts are in South Africa to play 3 ODI match series and 4 T20 internationals. The Prutis had not played an ODI since completing a home series against Australia in March 2020. Pakistan's tennis legend HOUTHI has passed away after protracted illness at the age of 91. He was the first Pakistani to reach the main draws of a Grand Slam Wimbledon championships. At Wimbledon, he appeared in the men's singles and men's doubles and mixed doubles. In an outstanding career, HOUTHI captained Pakistan's Davis Cup team as many as 32 times. He also reached the second round of the French Open and played in the U.S. Open in 1964. The International Tennis Federation awarded him with a gold medal. HOUTHI was also a patron of the Pakistan Tennis Federation. In tennis, top-seeded Ashley Barty has cruised into the Miami Open final with a 6-3, 6-3 win over 5th seed Elena Svitolina. In her first match, Barty was 1 point from elimination, and now she is on the course to defend the title.
The Australian fired 7 aces and 27 winners, while breaking serve 5 times en route to victory. Barty is fighting for his second title of the season, having won the Yarra Valley Classic in February. In the final, she will face either Bianca Andreescu of Canada or Greek Maria Sakkari. Meanwhile, in men's single, the 4th seed Andrei Rublev beat Sebastian Korda 7-5, 7-6 in their quarter-final clash. He faces Poland's Hubert Hurkacz in the semi-final. Earlier, Hurkacz beat Greek second seed Stefanos Tsitsipas 2-6, 6-3, 6-4. The 26th seed, who was down 2-6, 0-2 at the start of the second set, hit 15 aces and broke serve 3 times.
In women's football, Bayern Munich beat Rosengard 1-0 at their second leg of the Champions League quarterfinals. With an aggregate score of 4-0, Bayern booked their place in the semifinals of the tournament. Leah Schluler scored the only goal for the match, sealing a comfortable victory for the German side. The result in Malmö stretched Bayern's winning streak in all competitions to 26 matches. Bayern will face English side Chelsea in the semi-finals of the Champions League on the 24th of April in the first leg. Meanwhile, Real Madrid captain Sergio Ramos has sustained a calf injury. The injury means he will miss both legs of the Champions League quarterfinal against Liverpool. Real face Liverpool on the 6th and 14th of this month and will also play Barcelona on the 11th of April. Ramos was substituted in the 86th minute in Spain's win over Kosovo in a World Cup qualifier. The club did not say how long the problem will keep him sidelined, but media reports say it will be up to a month. The 35-year-old defender had knee surgery on torn meniscus in January, missing 10 games. In cycling, French classic one-day race Paris-Roubaix has been postponed until October due to the ongoing coronavirus crisis. The organizers and cycling's governing body agreed with French authorities to delay the race. The race was initially slated for the 11th of April this year. It is framed for the tough course across the narrow farm tracks in northern France. Known as the Hell of the North, the race is one of the cycling 5 momentum showcases. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.
Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host Alandar Khan. And yes, as you know, we give quality information with regards to sports from all across the globe. You guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. That basically works for Twitter and Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. Yes, football qualifier. Armenia actually managed to beat Romania 3-2 in the FIFA World Cup qualifier round. And from the world of NBA, Brooklyn Nets actually beat Houston Rockets 120-108 on Thursday. From the world of cricket, West Indies versus Sri Lanka. The second test, day 3. West Indies lead Sri Lanka by 104 runs. The world of tennis, yes, Miami Open 2021. Maria Sakkari beats Naomi Osaka to book the semi-final spot. And yes, those were the headlines. And to begin with, obviously, we'll talk more about the world of football. Yes, the World Cup FIFA qualifier matches are currently underway. And some major turn of events are happening, and some major upsets actually happen as well. But to discuss all of this,
it's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.